Hey, how would you like to be more knowledgeable about the housing market than 99% of the other buyers, sellers, investors, and heck, even realtors in your area? That's right. If you look at this one thing I'm going to show you today, you can be more knowledgeable than most other people about the housing market. So it's not that complicated. And this statistic we're going to examine today is something you can examine, you can track, you can look up on your own anytime you want. It's pretty powerful. All right, this video is jam-packed full of value. I hope you learn a lot. I certainly learned a lot once I discovered this technique. Thank you for joining me on today's video. Hey, thanks for joining Elaine and I on today's video. We're out here on the TJ Evans Bike Trail just outside of Columbus, Ohio, where I work as a real estate agent and investor. Thanks again for joining us on this great Ohio morning. And do me a favor, hit the like button, consider subscribing. If you don't like me, at least hit the like button for Elaine. She deserves it, right? All right, let's get going. Home prices really come down to one concept, supply and demand. And that's really what we want to talk about today. So when you look at the number of homes for sale in a marketplace, that's really the supply. Now the demand is how many homes are actually selling and closing, right? So pretty simple. So the more supply you have, the more homes you have available for sale, generally speaking, the softer and lower prices could actually go. Conversely, if you have a tight supply, not a lot of homes available for sale, then that can obviously lead to price increases. And this is the same with any other type of product. It doesn't matter if you're talking about TVs, cars. During the pandemic, right? Cars were a hot commodity, and new car prices, even used car prices, went up through the roof. Why? Because there wasn't a whole lot of, there wasn't a whole lot of supply versus the demand of people at home during COVID. So to nail down supply and demand in your marketplace, we have to look at a metric and a data set called months of supply. A lot of people also call this the absorption rate. So in essence, the months of supply is really the total number of homes available to buy, and the homes that are available on the marketplace, the total number of those divided by the number of homes that have sold in that market on an average monthly basis. And so you divide those numbers and you get a months of supply. So to illustrate this, if you had 100 homes in a subdivision available to purchase, and in that subdivision, on average, 50 homes a month were selling, that means you divide 100 by 50 and you get 2. So it's 2 months of supply. Conversely, if you had 100 homes for sale, but only 25 on average are selling per month, then that's a months of supply of 4. So it's 100 divided by 25. So that's really how it works. So the higher the number is of months of supply, the greater the supply, the lower the demand in general, and the lower prices could go. But lower months of supply can actually equal higher prices. Hey, so what's happening with home prices in your neck of the woods? Are they actually going up? Are they going down? Are you seeing homes sit on the market a long time? Comment below, let us know. All right, so now that we understand months of supply, let's look back over the last 5 years nationally and find out what has happened to months of supply and the corresponding home prices. How have they affected home prices? All right, so let's look back all the way to 2019. And so we're gonna start in May of 2019. So way back in May of 2019, before the pandemic, we had 2.6 months of supply. That was how many months of supply we had right before the pandemic in May of 2019. Now, the price increase year over year was 3.5%, meaning home values were increasing at that time 3.5% year over year, which is actually kind of normal historically for the US. 3.5%, 4%, 5%, kind of normal. The median sale price for homes back then, according to Redfin in May of 2019, are you ready for this? $299,000. That's it, 299 grand for the median house in the US. Just, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So we have months of supply at 2.6, median price 299, and the growth rate of home prices, 3.5% growth rate. All right, so now let's flash forward a little while to May of 2022. So in May of 2022, right kind of in the throes of the pandemic, kind of heading out of it, but certainly still, feeling the effects of it in the economy, we were at 1.6 months of supply. So the months of supply went from 2.6 to 1.6 months of supply. Now, what do you think happened to prices? The median sale price in May of 2022 was $432,000. Yeah, that's right, 432 grand. So it went from $299 to $432,000. Now, the growth rate at that time in May of 2022 was 14%. So home values were growing 14% year over year, and the months of supply was 1.6. So you had 1.6 months of supply, extremely low, compared to 2.6 months of supply before the pandemic, when home prices were increasing, by the way, before the pandemic. And now you have, in 2022, you have home values increasing 14% to $432,000, and months of supply is 1.6. So when that months of supply gets really low, I mean, in the 1 point area, the 1, the 2s, you're gonna see home value growth probably. Now, all this data is obviously macro. It's something that, it's a national number. Everything I'm talking about needs to be examined in your local county, subdivision, street level neighborhood. So don't rely on just the macro data, but it gives us a snapshot of what can happen overall as months of supply changes and where prices head with that change. One of the other cool things about the bike trail is that there's all these little trails that come off of it that you can explore. Like this one behind me. I'm not sure where it goes. I'm not really dressed today to go up there and find out, but I did make a note of it because when I come back and run this trail, which Elaine and I do a lot, we'll check that place out. It may even lead to somebody's backyard. A lot of these trails off this trail, the sub trails, lead to people's backyards, like right in their backyard. And most of them are pretty cool with you kind of like just walking the trail and stumbling upon their property. You know, they understand they live off the bike trail and, you know, people are going to explore. So most people in the area are pretty cool about that. So now let's look at May of 2024, just a few months ago, and do a check on months of supply and prices. Months of supply were at 2.3 months, and home values are currently growing at about 4.9% year over year. The median sale price is now $440,000 according to Redfin monthly data. So you have home prices increasing still, you know, faster than before the pandemic, but you can also see months of supplies is also lower than before the pandemic. So the correlation's clear, and if you go and test this over and over again, generally speaking, you'll find it to be true. Now, there are exceptions to everything, right? So if you're in a market where homes are, you know, if you're in a luxury neighborhood where, let's say, the average median or the median around the area is 500 grand and you've got homes listed at $1 million, well, those $1 million homes probably won't sell as fast. So there could be a larger months of supply. So again, you have to look specifically at what you're trying to buy, the type of property, and certainly the area. That matters a lot. But overall, nationwide, I think this data is really telling. So what does this all have to do with a housing crash? Well, if months of supply before the pandemic, before anybody was really thinking about the great, you know, insanity of home buying over the last couple years, if months of supply was 2.6 and home values were increasing 3.5%, and now months of supply is 2.3, and you can see home values increasing 4.9%. Do you think there's a likelihood of a crash? Now, let me give you another illustration, and this one's big. So this data point I couldn't believe. And so check this out. Hey, before I get to this next stat, as a reminder, do me a favor, hit the like button, consider subscribing to our channel. Elaine and I greatly appreciate it. All right, so people wonder, what about the great financial crisis and when we had all the foreclosures and, you know, people were able to buy properties for pennies on the dollar? So then people wonder, what happens when supply, months of supply hits, you know, 5, 6, 7? You know, we're talking about 2s, 1s, 3s right now. What about 5, 6, 7 months of supply? What happens to prices? Well, glad you asked. So this is pretty crazy. So in January 2012, we were at 7.5 months of supply. That's right, 7.5 months of supply. So what do you think home values were doing? Well, so home values then were actually down 4.4% year on year. So back in 2012, we had negative growth. We had deflation, right? You had a negative number. So negative 4.4% year over year growth, and months of supply was 7.5. Again, pretty telling, right? So if you look at this graph on my screen right now and you go from 2012 all the way up to 2024, you can see that generally speaking, months of supply was dropping. And even though we've had some increases lately, we're still at the point nationally where it's not going to support a crash nationally. It's just not going to. Now, if months of supply spikes and stays and remains elevated for, a few months, if like months of supply went to 6, 7, 8, yeah, then you can probably assume that there's going to be some price declines, right? Some softening. There's no doubt. One of the cool things I like about the TJ Evans Bike Trail here in Central Ohio is that it has a lot of history to it. So the path we're standing on was actually a railroad track at one point that they paved over, and it runs alongside, runs parallel to these creeks and kind of gorges, if you will. They're not huge gorges, but they're these gullies, I guess, that run parallel to it. And so these gullies, these gorges, whatever you want to call them, they were actually canals. These were the old canals that the riverboats used, or canal boats, I guess, used to transport goods up and down, from Zanesville, which is east of here, to Newark and into Granville and then into Columbus. So yeah, I mean, it's cool. It has a lot of history here, and Ohio is amazing. It's an amazing state, and certainly where I live in Central Ohio, I'm very lucky. It's kind of like a hidden gem of the U.S. I feel like. Home prices are still relatively affordable compared to the rest of the country, but they're still have gone up a ton, and there's a lot of economic development here. Yeah, so Ohio is great. A lot of history. If you want something cool to check out, if you're in the Midwest or thinking about a trip where you want to take in some history and not spend a ton of money, Ohio may be your spot. Not Iowa, Ohio. Okay, so what does all this data mean as a buyer, seller, or investor? And more importantly, where can you get this information? And how do you put it together? Well, as a buyer, if you're looking to buy in a specific area, you have to get really detailed in what you're looking for. You can't simply just look at the number nationally or even in your market and go, all right, well, I can just use that number. No. You have to go down to the type of asset, the type of product or house you're looking to purchase. So if you're a home buyer and you're looking to buy let's pretend here in Ohio, where the median price is like, our median houses are like 350 grand. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you're looking for a $250,000 house, 3-bedroom house with a basement, then you have to look for those type of properties and compare those properties. You can't compare them to an $800,000 house that's 5,000 square feet. As a buyer, you can look at months of supply to understand how that market that you're looking in and how the neighborhood is trending for possible price decreases, right? And so the other thing you can do is if you see a big months of supply sustained in a particular neighborhood or area for a period of time, that may be a signal that you can offer a lower price than what the seller is asking for, right? Conversely, if you're seeing months of supply at 1, 2, maybe even 3, depending on where you live, you may not get a discount. So don't be surprised, right? So if you pay attention to that months of supply, that's gonna give you a guide as a buyer. The other thing, so if you're a seller, same thing, right? If you're looking to sell a house, sell an investment property, whatever you're doing, and you examine months of supply and you see that it's a tight market, maybe 1, 2 months of supply, something like that, well, you may be able to, you may expect multiple offers. You may expect it to go quick if you price it right, right? And you present the property correctly. But if you see a large months of supply, like 10, 8, I've listed homes before that are over $2 million in a market where the normal home price is 350 grand. Well, those months of supply for $1 million plus homes in my area, could be 10, 12 months of supply. I've seen 30 months of supply because there aren't a lot of buyers to buy them. So you can expect the house to sit longer. And so as an investor, same thing, right? Doesn't matter if you're looking to buy a property or sell an investment property, you check that months of supply and that can significantly help. So where do you find all this data? So there's really a few ways to find it. There's more than what I'm stating here in the video, but here are my ways, and they've helped me, and that's what I use. So number one is a place like Redfin. So you can look at Redfin from a metro level, from a county level even. You can look at Redfin data, and even zip code level, and you can find out what months of supply is for your area. And so that is definitely a data set you can use, and it's free. Redfin provides that data free. The link's in my description below. The next way to find the information is to work with the realtor. Now, what you can simply do if you don't know any realtors or you've never asked for this data is just Google them. That's what I would do. I'd Google them, look at some with great ratings, and you're not committing anything right now. You're just asking for some info. So I'd call them and ask them for the months of supply for your particular asset, whatever that product is, whatever you're after, right? Whatever type of house, and the time period you wanted it to compare it. And then I would ask them for it on a regular basis. So maybe once a month, maybe, once a quarter, depending on how long your horizon is for buying or how often you want to look at the data. So I would ask them for the data. Now, if they don't have it or they can't give you months of supply, I'd find a new realtor. So there's no reason why they can't give you months of supply. There's just no reason. It's a calculation you can do. Maybe what they're going to do is give you the number of active properties for sale. That can help. You can also look, and then they're also going to give you closed properties, right? So if they can give you the number of closed sales over a period of time, over at least a year, so you can do the division by 12, and they can give you the active inventory, so they give you the active and the solds, you can calculate it yourself. That's not a problem, right? So 2 ways to get it if you're working with a realtor. And again, this should be simple for the realtor to get. And right now, the market's slow. Like, the number of sales are really low compared to historically what they've been. A lot of that has to do with the low inventory right now. So the point is, they should have time to do it. Most agents are kind of, they're not horribly busy right now. So anyway, that's the next way, is with the realtor. Now, if you don't want to do either of those things, or you don't like those ideas, you could also find the data yourself. And I like to do this because it teaches you how to do it yourself. It's, to me, the self-reliance is awesome, and you can kind of learn a lot just from searching and pulling the data. How do you pull the data yourself? Well, I'm glad you asked. So check out this video right now. I actually go over in detail how to find months of supply yourself on your own, how to analyze it and track it in this video. Check it out now.